As I got ready to start this episode today, I was wondering, you know, every parent doesn't necessarily have a great experience with their kids. And so on this episode of Monica Mentors, I want to talk about prayer therapy while you're parenting. And did you know that helping your kids starts with you? A lot of times we talk about there is a generation who was raised that did not know the Lord. And in today's world, sometimes, it kind of feels like parenting can be in a space where every day, again, is not a good day. There are some behaviors, there are some things that our kids have picked up along the way that seems to, like when they come home or come home from school or you hear them in the room with their friends, you are wondering what in the world is going on. And so what we're going to talk about taking a deep dive into understanding how you can raise a child up in the church and they can still grow up to be different than what you were expecting as far as their behavior. We're going to talk about emotional tools to try to help them to navigate life's challenges, even when it seems like you know how to handle it because of the way you were raised. But then you got to look at it this way. Sometimes with these kids, it is night and day. So in this episode, we're going to focus on the powerful intercession of prayer and therapy. I know so many people sometimes that say, and listen, if that's what works for you, mom and dad, I don't have a problem with it. Some people say we'll just take it to the Lord in prayer. But there are people who are professionally trained that can help your children with some of the behavior that you're seeing that's totally contrary to how you raise them. Now, one of the things that I will encourage you to do as we go into this conversation, perhaps if you want to pray and ask God to lead you to a faith-based therapist, which is one of the things I did several years ago for myself personally, you can talk to someone outside of inside of a sphere of influence, but someone that can help you deal with the ins and the outs of what you are dealing with in silence. And you don't necessarily want someone to know it publicly because then you'd have to take off the mask. I think that's one of the things sometimes in the church we are not necessarily shameful. That's not the word I want to use because there are times a lot of us have had good days and bad days. But I think that if we create this space that makes it seem like everyone in the church is perfect, everyone in the church has no problems, then I think we are creating a narrative that's just simply not true. I'm not knocking any influencers that are online as they talk to our children. They encourage our young people to be their best selves, to go after the dollar, to get their businesses going, to do a lot of things that looks a lot different than what we're used to. But you can best to believe there's not a whole lot of them that are encouraging the kids to get professional help, to seek guidance, and more importantly, encouraging them to pray. So mom and dad, that's where you have to come in. I would not be sitting in this show space with you if I didn't have praying parents. Now, let me be clear. I messed up a lot. And I'm sure there were times that my parents got to the point of thinking that, why keep praying? Because again, what they were praying, I'm sure looked totally the opposite of what they were physically seeing me do in the natural. But I also believe that my parents had an expectation in the spiritual that eventually, as I grew older and I experienced some things and saw some things, thank God I didn't end up in the grave or in jail, but eventually their prayers caught up with me. And that's why I'm here to help you with your kids today. We have got to get back to a community that prays and a community that goes to therapy, y'all. There is nothing wrong with getting professional help. When I grew up, the words that I used to hear was crazy. And, in some ways that word is still out there, but it's simply someone who, my opinion, may have had something to happen and just not have had an opportunity to figure out how to reconcile those thoughts in their head, how to pray the prayer that needs to be, prayed to get them into a space to help them navigate the next moment. There's oftentimes, you guys will hear me say on this show, I had to learn over time, it is 1 second at a time. Is how you have to take some things. And on my journey through therapy, I realized a lot of things that I was reacting to in my adulthood, parents, were things that I didn't deal with when I was a child, i.e. being picked at because I had a lighter skin tone than everybody else, being picked at. I got so tired of hearing good hair, and even those adults who tended to make it seem like I was so much different than my peers. I remember my best friend and I went to a vacation in Dubai, and we had a chance to talk about it, not realizing the more things looked different, the more they were actually the same for us. In our experiences, we were just in two different places and spaces dealing with those things at that moment in time, the best that we could. But our biggest takeaway, I think, is we both realized we held on to a lot more things than we had to, and we dealt with a lot more challenges than we needed to, simply because we didn't know how to ask for therapy. We didn't know how to say, can you pray with me? We didn't really understand how to do those things. And so that's why your role as a parent is so important. But let me say this, Mom and Dad, you have to be okay with your kids going to therapy. You're going to have to be okay that you've done everything that you can do and may need to bring in some outside resources that can pinpoint some conversations and what I like to call pivots with your children. Because again, keep this in mind, the whole entire goal is to have your children be in a space where they're comfortable talking to you and talking to their peers, writing it out if they have to, but expressing those innermost things that tend to fester if they're undealt with. Research shows that children benefit from professional counseling when they're dealing with anxiety, trauma, or behavioral challenges. When I was in school as a little girl, one of the biggest things I had to deal with was people who wanted to be around me, not because of who I was as a person, but who they thought I could introduce them to. Because when I was growing up, I was very, what most people would consider friendly. For me, I just didn't know a stranger. So, the way I was raised, I was just used to speaking when I walked into a room. That was the culture of my family in Birmingham. And a lot of people took that and they would gravitate to me thinking that, hey, if I'm around her, then other people will be drawn to me. And so you have some children that are just the opposite of that. They're okay being in their inner space by themselves. And so professional counseling can help them to figure out if that's truly their personality or if that's a pro or minus for their emotional well-being. Parents, did you know that a therapist can even help you and your children with the communication skills? Let me tell you something. I don't care what anyone says. Based on my experience, and of course we do these shows for entertainment purposes only. We're not an attorney. Consult who you need to consult. But I'm telling you, whether it be marriage, friendships, situationships, communication, failure and lack of communication is the number one thing that keeps people in bondage as far as dealing with other people. I will tell you in a heartbeat, if I shut down, it's a done deal. It's nothing you can say. I'm done. And so that's not always a healthy space. And that's one of the things I did learn when I was in counseling. And so a lot of times for me, a communication skill for me is silence. But through counseling, mom and dad, I learned how to not make that look negative to the people that I'm in a relationship with. If anything, it's me trying to figure out how I need to say something before I say it. Did you guys know that even academic performances, there are children who are now needing counseling? I'm not saying that every child has a I don't like the word learning disability, but it seems like we are in a generation now where academic performances are lower. And I don't know if it's not a passion for education anymore. I don't know if the parental support in the home is not as strong as it used to be. There are conversations I don't think are being had anymore about what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to go to school for? I think that a lot of it is maybe some things we need to evaluate as parents. And perhaps we're leaving that hole for our kids. Therapy actually fosters better relationships with families and peers. And this was according to the Horizon Counseling Service Center. Therapy provides tools for resilience. More than 60% of adults report experiencing at least one adverse child experience that is affecting them now in adulthood. I was a runner. I can attest to that. So when things got hard for me before I went through counseling, I would run. I didn't have time to sit up and try to help you figure out what the problem is, or we figured out. Deuces, I'm out. And I just keep it moving. But I used to run. I used to love to run when I was a child. And when I was little, I think I probably used to run from my mom a lot, to keep from getting in trouble. And so there are patterns that you may want to go back and look at, mom and dad, in your own space while you're navigating the counseling space or the therapy space with your kids. Did you know there are some children who now feel that their mental health is at a critical space like it's never been before? They don't feel like they have anyone to talk to when they're mad, when they're sad, when they're confused. A lot of kids are dealing with sexual identity conversations that they don't know how to maintain. A lot of children are wondering, do I go to church? Do I not go to church? Do I, get an education? It's a lot of do I type conversations out there with this generation that seems to be blossoming into a generation that seems to be so uncertain. And it seems to be creating so much confusion with them. I cannot tell you guys how many young people I've talked to in the last year or two. If you ask them, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? And the number one thing is, I don't know. That's not good, y'all. Out of all the opportunity, the investing that we can do in our communities, we should not be raising a I don't know generation at this time. They have advancements in AI. They have internet things. They can use their phone and become millionaires. And I'm not saying money is the tool. What I'm saying is that they don't look forward to what's inside of them because there's so much noise that they have to manage around them. And a lot of times, especially in school, it's a lot more than you realize. There is a scripture that I love, Proverbs 11:14, and it says, where there is no guidance, a people fall. But where there is an abundance of counselors, there is safety. Seeking wisdom through therapy for your children, it can align with this biblical principle. Now, how do you pray as a parent? Do you pray? If you don't pray, how do you expect your children to do it? Parenting can be so challenging, but Philippians 4:6-7 reminds us to bring our worries to God in prayer. Did y'all know? Listen, I had an incident with someone. I don't want to say any names, but I had an incident with someone and I said, Lord, let me tell you something. If you don't handle this, I'm going to set it off. In Jesus' name, amen. So I have prayers that I have to say quickly to keep me out of doing something crazy or to keep me from doing something that will get me into something else. And so there are times, Mom and Dad, where you're not going to have time to be deep. My great-grandmother used to say this prayer. We used to pick at my cousin all the time. She used to say, Lord, help me. And I'm not going to say my cousin's name. And then she would go off. And she would just walk off by herself. That was a prayer. And so as it shows us, prayer can help you find your strength and your peace in God while you're looking for a therapist for you and your family and your children. Hannah in the Bible. Hannah prayed a heartfelt prayer for her son Samuel. And that's 1 Samuel 1:10-11. Read that when you get a chance, because it shows the importance of dedicating children to God and seeking his blessings over their life. According to it's BMC psychology, did you guys know that prayer can reduce stress and improve emotional well-being in both kids and the parents? There was a research done in that same article that said even practicing some type of healthy, positive, religious practice can reduce your overall feelings of negativity and self. A lot of people use the word, I was going to say selflessness, but yeah, let me go with that. It can even help you increase that. Prayer fosters a sense of peace and guidance in making decisions. You teach your children how to pray, then perhaps some of the things that you want to try to warn them about, maybe they'll have a dream about it. Maybe they'll get an unction about it, because in prayer, they can say something as simple, now I lay me down to sleep. Lord, please protect me while I'm in this home. Protect me in school. Protect me from bullies. Protect me from little boys or little girls that pick at me because I may not dress the way they dress, or I may not act the way they act, or, I don't play in the band. I don't do all these extracurricular activities. And God will bring them peace. But if you don't teach them how to do that, then Mom and Dad, why are y'all surprised when some of your children just don't want to be bothered with anybody, even y'all? Philippians 4:6 says, do not be anxious for anything, but in everything that you do by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, make your requests known to God. That's prayer. Prayer is the primary source of parenting. And then you still need to go to therapy. I'm going to keep on bringing those two together, y'all. Now, I am not crazy, and I'm using that word on purpose, guys, because in our community, I feel like hearing that word crazy over and over again, unfortunately, may be one of the reasons that we don't go to therapy, because crazy makes you seem like something wrong. It makes you seem like you're not a good person, and that's so far from the truth. Some parents struggle with the idea of therapy based on that word. And then some parents, there are some of you guys, you pray, but you believe that only prayer is sufficient when you're dealing with a child from hell. when you're dealing with a personality that the child has allowed to fester within themselves. You can pray, but again, get you some therapy, get your children some therapy. Research suggests that integrating faith with professional counseling is called holistic healing. James 1:5 tells us, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God. He will give it to you generously, and you will find the answers that you need. Guys, you got to start looking at some things and seeking wisdom for yourself. I can come on this podcast week after week, year after year. Every time you turn on your social media, you can see me there. But if you're not putting these things into action, then you're just looking at me just helping my numbers go up, but you're not doing anything to put into practice what we're talking about. And you're going to find yourself in the same space over and over again where you just hitting the rewind button. Are you ready to take action? I do not want you to look at these podcasts anymore if you're not ready to take some action. We got to break the stigma around mental health, especially in faith-based families. Did you guys know that many faith-based communities hesitate to seek therapy due to the stigma that something must be crazy, something must be wrong? I don't want anybody to know my child is in therapy. I don't want anyone to know I'm in therapy because I call on the Lord. Studies highlight the importance of we have got to start normalizing mental health discussions. Go do your research. Mental health is a thing now. And it's getting worse, guys, especially in the Black community. With all of the traumas and the different things that we're seeing that as a generations we've never seen before, and we're not quite sure how we're supposed to handle it. And we are internalizing not only what we deal with, what we see on television, what we hear about and read about in the news. It is causing some extremely unhealthy spaces for us that we got to figure out how to turn into healthy spaces. 2 Timothy 1-7 says, for God does not give us a spirit of fear, but he gives us love and power and self-control. Are you ready to have healthy children? Are you ready to be healthy yourself? Are you ready to admit that you need more than prayer? Are you ready to say, I cannot handle this thing alone? Raising children in this society today requires wisdom, patience, and a willingness to seek the right support. The Bible reminds all of us in Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way they should go. And even when he or she is old, they will not depart from it. Did you guys know that this verse highlights the lifelong impact of early guidance, showing us that investing in our child's emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being is so essential? There's so much research out there that supports the importance of early intervention in mental and emotional development for our children. Those studies show that our children, the ones who receive counseling and or therapy, if it's needed, they have a stronger coping mechanism with life and life struggles. And they tend to have healthier, productive relationships. Additional scripture that reinforces the value of seeking wisdom and counsel is Proverbs 11:14, which states, where there is no guidance, the people fall. But when there is an abundance of counselors, there is safety. This aligns with the idea that professional help combined with prayer and faith creates a strong foundation for our next generation and their future. It is time for us to build the platitudes, to build something instead of using our own hangups to not prepare the next generation. When you think about when those individuals back in the day, when they couldn't vote, when they couldn't read, when they had to, they can only drink out of certain water fountains, they can only ride certain things. Do you think they did it to not see better for the next generation? Everybody in my family used to say to us, I want to see you do better than me. I want you to have more than me. Have we lost that, parents? Have we lost that in this generation? Have we accepted the mindset that guess what? I fail, and so what if they fail too? They're figured out one way or the other. They'll get it sooner or later. Have we lost the value in our community of what it looks like to have strong, healthy-minded children to be able to equip them so that they can equip the next generation? Parents, you have to recognize and you have to acknowledge that your child may need help, whether that's through therapy, mentorship, or faith-based guidance. It is not a sign of weakness to need help, but he who identifies their weakness has actually identified their strength. James 1:5 reminds us, if any of you lack wisdom, ask God, and he will give it to you. Seeking wisdom involves the resources available to nurture and support you and your children. By embracing both faith and professional support, you are giving the tools to your children that they need to thrive and not just survive. Let's break this stigma around mental health and get out there and use the tools to help our children be the best person that they can be. What you're seeing today is therapy. What you're seeing today is prayer. You're seeing someone, even on my worst day, I still have a desire to be the best part of me so that I can encourage you. On my worst days is when I study the hardest for this podcast. When I'm in a space where I don't know if I'm going or I'm coming, I pray, I get in my Bible, I meditate, I sit quiet, and then I think about who can I give to today? And perhaps that's where we've kind of messed up, because we have potentially looked at this thing like it's no longer our assignment to give, to love, and to strengthen our next generation. What are you going to do about it? You going to keep complaining? You going to keep on taking on a negative, nasty, stank attitude because you feel like the world is yours and nobody else's? I told a friend decently, who gives you the right to judge a person? Who gives you the right? What God gave you the right to think that you can talk to people and treat people any kind of way? And so my challenge to you is, who gives you the right not to get your children help? Who gave you the right not to give them the best life that you messed up on? Because you had a chance too. Who gave you the right not to give them a choice? Let's deal with this thing, y'all. Prayer, and we need to get therapy. And I hope that your biggest takeaway from this was, don't take it personal. Don't get mad at me. Don't say she judging me. That's not my place. But I do love you. And I want to see the best you for you. And I want to see your children have the best opportunity to be the best person that they can be and not walk around being broken, being mad, being frustrated on the inside, and then taking that out on the rest of the world. Because none of us, there's not any of us that have the right to do that. This is your host, author Monica Martin Fletcher, and I want to thank you for joining me for another episode. I pray that you be reminded that prayer, therapy, and parenting, helping your kids, it starts with you. I'll see you next time on my next episode.